Start streaming. All right, we're gonna do this live video. I've been waiting for this phone to show up here from Brian. Brian I talked to on iPad Rehab chat. And this is a phone that he sent to Drivesavers. And then he got this crazy $4,000 quote from them. And he's wondering, is that really the only option? So he talked to me on chat and decided to send it over here. And I told him we'd do a video about it. So like I've been doing lately, I'm gonna do a live video as we go with this phone. And then later I'm gonna edit that video into something that goes onto the channel as sort of a short video. So if you want to come back and just kind of see what happened with this one, check in a couple of weeks and I will have edited this video into something that is short and watchable for most people. If you want to hang with us now, I'm going to be going through this case live. So let's see if this live stream is working, and then I'm going to get us set up, and I'm going to start by reading what Brian said to Drivesavers and kind of their response. So let me put up the green screens and we're going to jump right in. So I did my first trial of this format where I did a live stream of Brandon's phone that hadn't caught on fire, but Brandon was grinding a stump, or he set a stump on fire, and then his iPhone 13 quit working. And I fixed that on live stream about 2 weeks ago. And then between then and now, we had Practical Board Repair School, which was super, super fun. And we fixed a lot of cool stuff. It was a great class because last week we had, what happened to the face cam here? Let's see, is that working? Yeah, last week we had an Apple hardware engineer at the course. That was super fun and exciting. So we had a guy that worked on some of the Apple Watch stuff, and he's local, so maybe I can convince him to answer all your questions about, you know, Apple hardware engineering. How do you get a job? What's it like working there? So we might have him come on the channel. And then we had folks here from the Netherlands, from the Dutch National Police, and we got to do a live CPU transfer for those guys and fix a couple of their cases. Super fun. We had Zach, who on the weekend, I love the weekend, he did a iPad 7 CPU transplant from one he brought from home that ended up, he found out that the CPU had been glued on with B7000. Can you believe that? The CPU had just been glued on by some prior repair shop. So it was a super fun week. But now we're back here alone in the shop, and I'm gonna stream this Drivesavers case for you guys. All right, let's see if this is working. All right, I see some people on chat. Hello, everybody. So I'm gonna start by seeing if I can add the browser. Will that work? Let's see. Because I'd like for you guys to see the actual chat. Is that gonna work? Yes, I think that's gonna work. And then we're gonna click over to this app here. So what we're looking at is our chat app, which shows us, hopefully you guys can see that. Yep. All right, that's gonna show you what we heard from Brian before he sent us this phone in. All right, so I'm gonna make our first clip that might become part of the final video. So I'm gonna hit start recording. All right, today we're going to look at Brian's phone, hot off the press from having been on a trip to California out to Drivesavers. And after getting a quote for $4,000, Brian said, you know what, I'm gonna look around for some alternatives. So Brian actually reached out to me, and I talked to him on our chat app, which you can see here behind me. And so let's take a look and see, what did Brian say? So let's see, he started here. This is just the way the chat begins. You know, it really is talking to one of us. If somebody answers, it's going to be a real person. One of the, either myself or somebody from my team. So he says, I was watching your video about Drivesavers and I was quoted a pretty crazy amount from Drivesavers. Can I get a quote from you? So I asked him what phone and what happened to it. Because the type of phone, it's, you know, you're already a physician trying to figure out what's most likely. And he said, this turned out to be an iPhone XR. So he said, I was traveling, and when I came back, the phone was really warm one night. Really warm is a great symptom to have for data recovery. Really warm equals shorts. Shorts are always solvable. So I have high hopes just based on that one line. He said that he tried to let it cool, but it never turned on again. So he took it to his local Apple authorized reseller, and they tried to fix it and said they couldn't get it to power back on, and they recommended Drivesavers. So like everybody that goes that route, they're getting a card for Drivesavers for data recovery, and that is prohibitively expensive for most families, so it's really a dead end. So good job on you, Brian, for at least looking around to get a second opinion. So Drivesavers sent him a label, and the phone got there. And initially, they said that their normal service is between $900 and $4,500, or you can take 2 weeks longer, and it'll be between $700 and $3,500 or something. And today they said, I've never, and I told them, they're always saying $4,000. They're not even opening your phone in our experience, which comes from phones like this. So he's telling us what he got back from Drivesavers. Thank you for sending your phone to Drivesavers. Our inspection has confirmed that the device is physically damaged. Right, here's the device right here. It's absolutely not physically damaged in any way. So it looks like a normal looking iPhone XR, even has the box that he sent it in. Here's a video that explains the type of failure that your drive has experienced. And then let's see if we can copy that. That'll be interesting. I'm also curious how they know that, because it does not appear that Drivesavers actually opened this phone at all. Let's go ahead and just paste that up here and see what happens. Is it going to lead anywhere or be proprietary? iPhone physical damage evaluation. Oh, I see. So Drivesavers has not opened this. I was going to open it and see what was going on, and then I stopped because I could tell the adhesive is strong. This phone has never been opened before, So let's hit play on this.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I'm a Drivesavers data recovery
Hi, Jim.
engineer. And while you're making the decision whether or not to go forward with your recovery, we thought a visual explanation of your failure and why you should choose Drivesavers would help to answer some questions you may have.
Yeah, like why are you charging $4,000 for a phone?
Damaged.
Really?
During the evaluation, we opened the phone.
Did you?
Disconnected the battery and inspected the damage to the main logic board.
That's like implying that this is this guy's board.
To proceed, we will further inspect your logic board under a microscope and repair or replace any necessary components. Due to the high level of encryption, we have to get your phone functioning, even for a short time, to extract the data. Once we have successfully revived your phone, our
Sunday, do you hear this?
will extract and verify the data that you
do our own.
requested.
We should do our own.
Specially trained on the tools and techniques required to recover the data that you have identified as most important to be returned.
All right, I don't think I can even stand this anymore.
User data, we want to focus our verification process on what is most important to you. If you have not yet provided this information to
All right, that's enough of that. I can't stand this. So this is like quite the, just crazy, right? This phone, they didn't open this phone. I don't think they did anything to it. And they're just trying to imply that this phone has been, like super smashed inside, which, doesn't even make sense. It just, got some kind of a short. All right, so back to the note. Can you believe this? Back to the note, it says, the recovery process begins with partial disassembly of the device. This is all the stuff they're saying. And here we go. Given the difficulty anticipated with this iPhone and assuming a successful standard turnaround, it's going to be between $4,185 up to $4,410 after your discount. What? And the discount is the, since you were referred by Apple, which, everyone is, we're going to give you this imaginary discount. This is insane. We will never exceed this ridiculous $4,000 estimate. Or if you want to save some money, we'll do it for only $3,500. And so Brian said, this seems pretty shady, that it's automatically at the high end of the price, and it's an iPhone XR. And that's always the case. I've never heard of them quoting anything lower than that for phones that don't turn on. All right, so I let him know iPhone 10R that's hot has probably got a short within either maybe the charge IC or, you know, I don't know, Wi-Fi chip or backlight line, you know, just gonna have a short on one of the main power rails. And it's a great problem to have. So he says, cool. My guess is the drive is totally fine and it's a small repair. And I said, phones don't really have drives, but, you know, they think people are stupid, so give me $4,000. And then I told him, you know, it's not an easy problem per se, but it's very straightforward, if that makes sense. It's not easy, but it's also not super open-ended, right? It's as likely going to be solvable. And I told him I'd be happy to do yours in video if you'd like to see what was really wrong. So Brian, we're going to do this phone live for you. And then he asked me for the price, and our price is 10% of what Drivesavers is going to do, and include 64 gigs of data. And I told him to give us a call and send him a video that was similar with a short circuit, you know, and, you know, that's the deal. Okay, enough of that. Now let's jump in and see what's actually wrong. So I didn't disassemble this one because I wanted to just kind of take this one straight from the top and see what's really going on. So we'll close the browser and we will hit stop on my clip. Okay, and now we're gonna open up the phone. All right, so I'm gonna take the stickers off. All right, and let me close that so I can see what you guys see. All right, those desks were looking too clean for a repair shop. Yeah, exactly. I mean, isn't it, like, I gotta hand it to them, like the whole like marketing shaming going on, like sort of just, they're doing everything they can to just imply that this is, you know, pretty crazy. All right, let me do another quick clip. Hello from Egypt. I couldn't hear what he was saying. Okay, well, I'm disappointed that you didn't show the repair of my sister's phone. It was another Drivesavers case. Yeah, see, Jack, that was one that I recorded, and it's not an interesting case. It was like kind of a forensic solution, so we can't show some of that stuff. So there's not much to see. So I'm not really sure what to do with that footage, and you know, it's around, you know, but it was also straightforward. So same thing, you know, but here we go. Let's see, is this about he didn't open the phone and charged $4,000? Yeah, pretty much, but we'll see what is really going on. All right, I'm gonna now hit start recording. I have a little bit of a time crunch today because I have to pick up kids at exactly 2:30. So we, depending on what's wrong with this phone, we'll either get through it today or we will pick it back up in a few days so that we can see the final exciting conclusion. And if you're just joining, I am gonna do a live stream. This is totally live. I have no idea what's gonna happen with this phone. And we're going to ultimately edit this video if it makes sense to do that, if it's cool or interesting, if we learn anything. If there's anything going on with the, you know, like right now there's this big light here that's making the hand camera kind of be a little bit out of focus, let me know so that we can, you know, make a video that people actually want to see. Been getting complaints about the quality of the video, so let me know, because I'm 48 and I'm looking at a projector of the microscope there. So what you guys see and what's actually being recorded in the computer, I'm not going to be able to see very well. So let me know if it doesn't look like it's going to show up. All right, so we're going to move some things out of frame just to clean it up a little bit. And let's open up this phone. All right, so we're going to open it up and see what's really going on. I have to put on the old glasses. Here we go. So I can tell from just the difficulty that my fingers have in prying this adhesive, the stickiness of it, that this is the factory seal. I don't believe that this phone has indeed been opened. All right, there we go. All right, and inside this is a normal looking iPhone XR. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect the battery and take the board out. All right, so I made a clip there so that I can later speed that up. I think the camera is out of focus a little bit. Oh no, should have paid attention right there. Let's see. What I'm seeing that you guys are seeing is pretty delayed. Let's see. Does that make sense? Okay, there we go. It's totally out of focus. Oh, well that stinks. All right. Let's see. Hello from Jordan. Big fan of your work. All right. Well, good to know. I appreciate that feedback. I really can't see anymore. I was thinking about how funny it would be to bring in the pair of actual glasses that I would normally wear if I was wearing glasses, which I would never do. All right, Sunday. This says out of focus. It's this camera. Better now. So that's the, can you see better than me?
The sticker on the magnet tray looks like I can't focus
This?
on that. But I don't know why isn't that silver?
No, it's white.
Is it? Maybe it's just reflecting too much light.
Maybe. So I had to go buy new glasses after that course week where I had one where there was no lens over here. That was choice A. And then choice B was only had one like bracket. So I was like wearing them like a monocle, like the Peanuts guy. So I had to go get another pair. All right, let's see. Much better. Now it's okay. All right, fantastic. The deal between Apple and Drivesavers is pretty toxic. The $4,000 isn't worth it for 95% who'd rather buy a new phone. Drivesavers gets to prey on the 5% that's desperate for the data. Yep. Well, it's just, it's, it's fine. It's, they have every right to do that. More power to them if they are able to successfully convince people that data recovery is, that they're the best option and that $4,000 is a reasonable price for that. Good for them. However, if you're going to do that, then you're going to have to suck it up when a video like this comes out that's like, yeah, well, that you guys, that's pretty outrageous. Maybe somebody will do the same thing to me and say like, yeah, Jess is charging $450 for what I'll do for $100, and I would have to own that. You're absolutely right. I totally am charging $450. That's what I value the work of me and my team to get this thing to turn on and extract all the data off of it, put it on a drive, make sure that all works, and we do not collect money if we can't do it. So the problem with it is when people get that recommendation from the authorized place and they feel like, that's their only option. Like, who is going to actually look around and believe that, you know, all the people like me and so many other great shops that are, you know, our students, you know, anybody that's doing data recovery for these phones, we're charging a fraction of what Drivesavers is quoting. Like, how, like, that is going to make people feel like there is no valid real option. It's just going to feel like a scam. I don't like being made to feel like a scam. So, Brian, we're going to do your phone live. All right, I'll do it for an order of fries and a McFlurry. All right, send it to Miguel. All right, let's see. Can we get the board out? Looks like it's about ready to come out. So let me make a clip. I'll do it for an order of fries and a McFlurry. All right, so we've got the screen off. Now let's go ahead and take the board itself out. All right, here we go. Looks like a normal iPhone XR. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug in the DC power supply just to make sure that it does indeed have a short, and we're going to probe around with a multimeter and see if we can find where that might be. All right, that's the end of that clip, and we're going to peel off this back thing. All right, chat, what line do you think is going to be short? You think this is going to be the charger chip? We had one at the course last week, which was like the old 6S, short within the Wi-Fi chip, but I've also seen a XR get backlight shorts, a lot of boost shorts. Could be lots of things. What I will do is take off these stickers. The XR is actually my least favorite phone to work on because of how hard it is to get these soldered on cans off. We've learned some of the sort of more official technology from our time with our hardware engineer buddy. So instead of saying shields, we're gonna have to have Dakota change his tattoo to cans, get the cans off. I don't know, but some of it was just more than we can bear. Like we learned that what we call the anchors on an HDMI port are called, what were they called? They were called the mechanical flange. Yeah, the anchors on one of those, like, you know, Nintendo Switch or HDMI ports, mechanical flange. A lot of funny stuff. It was super fun having some little bit of insider intel in here. All right, let's peel this off a little bit more. One time I did an iPhone XR, and I was actually lucky enough that the cause of the short was indeed within the little window here when I'm peeling the sticker off. All right, I'm gonna have to get the microscope out. All right, let's see. All right, DSD says it's gonna be charger damage. Sounds likely. All right. You must be from Japan, where McDonald's stopped serving fries due to a potato shortage. Is that true? All right, so I swapped out my microscope head for Mark's. Let's see how you guys like it. All right. And there we go. I do think that if you are watching a channel where they use like one of the cheap USB inspection like microscopes, like you can't really do repair under those very well, but they're meant for inspection and they do a pretty good job. So I was thinking maybe we should get something that's just more about like showing people under a microscope rather than actually working under a microscope. All right, so I've really annihilated this sticker. It's interesting, there's it seems like there might be 2 layers of sticker here, which is unusual. Maybe this is a refurb done in China. where they do things like put on an extra layer of sticker. All right, that's enough. We can see in this little window, and we can see in the other little window. There's no other windows here, and we can see in this little window. So if we're lucky, we'll find that the cause of our short is in the window, but probably not. We're not going to be that lucky. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to the hand camera. Move that out of the way. And plug in the DC power. All right, so I think for the sake of time, I'm not going to try to pull up all those tools on screen. We're just going to do the trust-based DC power supply. All right, let's see. All right, does it seem to have a short? So let me plug this in. How can I move this out of the way? That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. Let's see if we can zoom. Focus. All right. All right, board's out. Now I'm going to plug in a DC power supply and see what happens. And sure enough, I see high current consumption. All right, high current consumption tells us that there is a short on the board as expected. Now let's use the multimeter a little bit, probe around and see if we can figure out the location of that short. So we're going to go up here to the test point and we're going to check on the main power rail and see if it is short or is our short something else. So let's head under the microscope and check. And all right, I see our test point for our main power rail. So I'm going to do a quick diode mode right here. And survey says 0.304. 0.304, that's a little borderline, but I think that's actually normal for the main power rail. So we're going to say main power rail is not short, which leaves us with a few others, but they're going to be a little hidden for us to test. Let's go ahead and test here. 0.4 on our battery power rail, so that's also normal. And that's pretty much it for what we can test with these soldered on cans that are still on the board. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a thermal camera to just look for heat. If we're lucky, we'll see heat in the little windows where we can actually see the board, and we wouldn't have to take off these soldered on cans, but probably we will. So next stop, thermal camera. All right, end of clip. And now we're going to have to set up a thermal camera. All right, let's see. Do you think that there's any universe where we would be so lucky as to have the short show up and not have to take these things off? I bet we're never going to be that lucky. Let's use the easy to display thermal cam. Uh-oh. Brad, how come I got a super cam over here with no cord? I think, is this the cord for it? Let's see. Is it in the back? Weren't we using this like, did we use it? When did we last use this? I haven't used it in a long time. I think I did the same thing. I did it in a video the other day. I feel luck in the air. Today's the day. We're gonna get lucky, says Mr. I work for fries. This super cam is quite dusty, if you can see it on here. Why not thermal camera first? Well, we are doing the thermal camera first. That's what we're doing. Thermal camera first. Now we're gonna zoom back out, wide angle, zoom back it out. Oh, where is hand cam? Zoom. Look how dusty that is. This is the opposite of Drivesavers. Do you trust your data recovery? This is the difference between $4,000 data recovery and $400 data recovery. Level of dust on the camera. All right, let's see if we can get this thing to connect to the computer. Is it connected to the computer? Let's see. Do we hear anything? Nope. All right, we're gonna have to go on a hunt. Let's see, will it connect right here? This is my least favorite thing about this type of camera. I like the Seek camera, but that's very hard to show on video. So we are gonna go with the China Cam and see what we can see. First, I gotta find the China Cam software and see if it can wake up and detect this thing. All right. Come on, China Cam. There we go. Click it. Let me click it. There we go. Embiggen. Open the software. Come on, China Cam. You can do it. And China software does not detect China Cam. Let's switch to another one of these. And China software does still not detect China Cam. Not my favorite. And I'm gonna run out of time. All right, let's try to use a port in the back of this machine. Oh, grumble, grumble. And here's how you can really not see anything. Climb around down here. All right, that's definitely plugged in. I don't hear anything. All right, we're gonna give up on China Cam. Screw you, pal. Last chance. Oh, wait, it sees it. It sees it, it's a miracle. Okay. Yeah, it sees my finger. Okay, great. Back in business, so now we can put this into Open Broadcaster. Hold on. All right, see if we can juggle some kids around. Okay. Maybe look at 60,000 feet if you want the China Cam to be detectable. All right, let's see. If there was a chance that the short would be detectable in the windows, then Apple would have closed that loop. Now that's not true at all. All right, they are perfectly nice people that just don't think about us. Okay, let's look for thermal camera and see if I can enable the thermal camera. Where is that? Right here. Is it gonna work? Let's look for SuperCam. Almost. Yay! And does it see my fingers? Yes. Okay, so we're gonna pull this over here. All right, thermal camera is working, and we are going to put our board on it and see what gets hot. And that'll give us a hint where to look for our short. All right, so I've connected DC power supply. And now let's go tap, tap, tap and see what is getting hot. All right, over there. So we see our wire getting hot here, and we can see maybe some heat that's being spread out by that can. And now let's flip it and see what about the back. Come on. Is it going to be in our window? Oh my gosh. So, so exciting. Is it? Man, that'd be cool. Although I think that that is just showing us a troll. That's telling us what line is short, but not the actual cause. All right, so we got to zoom in on that. Let's see if we can zoom. Zoom, zoom. All right, so we got a hot spot right here. Let's see if we can focus. It's really hard to focus the super camera. All right, right here, it's possible that we can figure out our short right here at the very edge of the PMU. But we also might just be seeing the PMU getting hot because it's the sort of the source of the line that's short when the actual cause of the short is somewhere else. But either way, let's go look at that spot under the microscope. All right, so that's a thermal detection clip. Good enough. Put this guy down. Wouldn't it be great if we could be so lucky? I don't think that we deserve to be that lucky. All right, let's see. We are going to look under the microscope and see. All right, so we'll get rid of thermal and we'll get rid of hand and be back at the microscope. All right, so what did we see getting hot? We were looking in this little window and it was something right around here. So let's get under the microscope and bring that area into focus. Okay, so now we can just use our multimeter and measure to see if there is any kind of short that we can detect in this area without looking these guys up, which we could do later. Let's just see what we find. All right, so this is not short. This is got some flex on it, not short. Not short. Not short. All right, so we're going to guess that the cause of our short is actually probably an output right here, or it could be something that is under this shield on the other side, which is right around where, a little bit above where the Wi-Fi chip is, and I have seen that Wi-Fi chip be the cause of a main short. So either way, what should we do now? Let's kind of go in two different directions. One thing we could do is try to play map the dot and try to guess what line is short as an output. Let's just go ahead and take a look at ZXW. So I'm going to make a clip. All right, so we just measured here with the multimeter at our hot spot, and we can't detect any line that's short. None of these components are measuring short. So what we're going to do is just take a quick look to see if we can figure out what lines might exit the PMU at that spot, and then use our multimeter to see which of those is short, because I doubt that the actual cause of the short is right here. It could be, but I think that's unlikely right now. All right, so let's go ahead and look at ZXW, see what lines come out of the PMU right there. All right, so now we've got to dig up ZXW. And, oh God, I am going to run out of time. All right, let's see. Oh, I'd like to know at least what line is short. Let's see. I am going to run out of time. I should have started this earlier today, but we had a meeting. Okay, ZXW is waking up. And I'm going to find a ZXW over here. ZXW. There we go. And let's zoom in. iPhone XR. Let's see what we can see. Okay, here we are looking at ZXW, and in specific, we're looking right at that PMU, and we're trying to like say what lines leave the PMU at this spot. So let's zoom in and see. So we've got this one here, buck 2, which is going to go to a coil, and that line is PPSoCS1, so that's power to the CPU. I think that's really unlikely to be the cause of a short, just from experience. So let's look at main. Main is also not the cause of our short because we don't see high current consumption until after the PMU wakes up. And then we've got this guy, which I'm pretty sure is also another SoC or the CPU power line. So it's not going to be any of those. Let's see. What else was over here? Buck 4. What's buck 4? Let's see. Where do you go, buck 4? Buck 4 is PP1V1S2. So PP1V1S2 could be short, but in order to measure that with our multimeter, we'd have to take off that whole can on top of the CPU. That's going to be hard, and we don't have any other really good place to measure it. I don't think we can see. Yeah, we couldn't really get even to that little cap there. So that's a possibility. And then, let's see, what's this guy? Main, what's that guy? Main iSense. All right, so I've looked around here and I just don't see any good candidates, like, you know, a strong power output of the PMU that I would expect with experience here. This isn't something that you would be able to just predict. You'd have to go measure all these things until you did it enough times and you learn they're never short, then you're going to stop doing it. Here's what I bet's going on. I betcha that right on the opposite side of the board, remember our heat was kind of coming right from this spot. If we flip the board over, sort of in that sort of opposite area is the Wi-Fi chip. Because we have a short before that PMU really wakes up, I'm going to guess that my next candidate would be the Wi-Fi chip. So in order to say, is the Wi-Fi chip the cause of the short, which we just saw a case of that like last week, which was crazy, then I think we're going to have to go ahead and take off these cans. The way that I do that is just the safest way is to not use any heat and not to use like really aggressive dremeling. I'm going to just use the old mechanical method of getting these off. All right, so next step for me is going to be to flip this over and actually remove the covering on top of this Wi-Fi chip and then get back the thermal camera and see if that's where our short is. All right, so let's jump into that. All right, so I'm really running out of time. Let's see, 60-foot USB would impose round-trip delay issues. All right, yeah, the max heat was only 50 degrees Celsius. Okay, so now it's going to be a little bit boring, and I'm going to definitely run out of time. But I would love to have a reasonable stopping point of figuring out where this short is. Let me get a kind of a beater blade on here. I don't think I have time for that. All right, so I'm trying to free up this piece right here. So let's get rid of some stickers. And then we're going to just kind of mechanically disrupt A, B, and then over here. Mechanical disruption. Physical force breaking it. All right, now I'm going to try to weaken this one. And I don't think my spring will let me get up as high as I want. Weaken, 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 weaken. All right, over here. Weaken, 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 weaken. Okay. And now pry. Oops. All right, so all I've done so far is just use this mechanical blade to weaken. There we go. Weaken all the way along here. And then pry it up. So I've weakened it all the way around. And let's see. All right. One more right here. Now can opener time. And I'm providing a lot of stability to prevent this board from just breaking. All right, well, here we are. That's at least the Wi-Fi chip. So let's see. Is that a little bit of, like, earwax in here? It seems pretty normal. A little earwaxy. All right, let's look with the thermal camera now and just see, is that source of heat actually from this side of the board and not kind of coming from right there? I'd like to get this up a little bit more, but I don't know if I can with the time that I have left, which is no time. Okay, let's go ahead to the thermal camera. All right, so we're gonna definitely run out of time. Short killer blade, very strong. Yes, it is. All right, let's bring up ye old thermal camera and see once again. So we're going to put this up here. Let's meet back up tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow I've got to, I don't know, I got to do a lot of stuff, but I definitely want to get an answer on this one. So I don't know, tomorrow's pretty booked up. I got my swimming coaching for my triathlon tomorrow night. I got an Odyssey of the Mind meeting with my team I'm coaching. Let's kind of make this go back up a little bit higher. And I have got to drive to Buffalo in the morning. All right, let's see. All right, thermal camera, where are you at? No, that's not it. Let's see, can I see it on here? Thermal camera. All right. Thermal camera window is asleep. All right, Wi-Fi chip is exonerated and our heat is kind of more up here, which flipping it over. Yeah, all right, we're gonna have to just keep peeling this shield up. Okay. It's not ready yet. All right, no choice but to keep peeling the shield up. And keep going. All right, so we're not quite ready yet. This just seems like so like aggressive, but it's, I think, just kind of safest. Hi, this is Jessa. No, I'm actually in the middle of a live stream. Are you ready? Yeah, that would be perfect. Great. All right, bye. Yay! They aren't ready. Hooray! All right. Hold on. Sweet. Yay! Awesome. That was the school, and it said potential spam. Not spam at all. All right. Ta-da! Okay, so we've got a little bit of thermal paste. Let's clear that off so that we can see a nice clean view of the top of our CPU. All right. Learned about USB some time ago. If I recall, max recommended length specs were around 20 feet. For a great big long cable, it is kind of a long cable. I think that he meant 60,000 feet as in a China spy balloon distance. That's what I think he was talking about. Okay, now we have got a pretty good view on this side of the board of what might be getting hot. Yay for us. Yeah, yay for us. Yay for everybody. Yay for Brian. All right, so now we've got a good view. Nothing around here nothing's jumping out at me as something that looks burned, or this all looks fairly normal. The thermal paste makes it look a little bit gross, but all of that is a normal looking iPhone. All right. Well, there's our buddy, the good old, formerly known as TriStar, the Hydra chip. Maybe it's going to be that. Okay, now we're going to head back to the thermal camera. Now that we don't have that big hunk of metal dissipating the heat, maybe we'll be able to see some heat and see what line is actually short. To the thermal camera again. All right, team, let's see what we can see now. All right, let's get this under here. Let's get thermal. I'm hurrying, Brad. I know, but Betsy and Maisie just called me and they said, "Can we wait? Are you on your way already?" And I'm like, "Oh God, no." And they're like, "Oh, thank God. We need more time." They're decorating their friend's locker for her birthday tomorrow. Very, very good times. All right. All right. Now let's see what happens. We're going to connect DC power. Hello. Okay. Now we're cooking with gas. All right. So I'm going to stick. It's the next door neighbors right here. This guy. All right. So we've got a little dude right here getting hot, which is a tiny little chip, which is probably a boost IC and not the cause of our short, which will put us on a delay. But let's look it up to be sure. All right, so we're going to look right under the microscope. Let me get rid of thermal camera. Guy that was getting hot is this guy right here. So now let's head to ZXW and look that up. Is that the boost IC? Probably, but I don't know that I've seen a boost IC in a 10R long enough that I can remember that. All right, ZXW, where are you? We got an extension on our time, but it's still pretty tight. All right, why is ZXW not showing up? Oh man, I really can't. Thermal, God, I think I might have to actually go for using the Stream Deck, setting it all up. That says that is on. Okay. Then where is it? We're gonna have to turn off. We're gonna have to just promote it. There we go. All right, so guy that was getting hot was this guy right here. Let's see. Aha, VDD boost, VDD boost. This is the boost IC. So this component from experience isn't the cause of our short, but it's a clue what line is short. Our short is going to be on VDD boost. VDD boost is supposed to measure 0.372 in diode mode. And we're going to measure right along this row of caps here and see if VDD boost is indeed the shorted line. All right, VDD boost short, but why? VDD boost short. The good news is that VDD boost is probably just going to be a single cap. All right, so now I got to get rid of ZXW. Where is it? Okay, and back to the multimeter. We are now going to diode mode the VDD boost caps, which are right here. So we're going to do red probe on ground. Yep, 0, 0, 0. Full short to ground. So now we know for sure VDD boost is short to ground, but it's not likely to be this IC, because if we inject our voltage from the battery, it has to go through that IC, which creates the VDD boost line where the real short is. So why is it getting hot? Because it's a very thin wire on the way from the battery to the real short. It's a troll. So we're not going to take that guy off because that's not the cause of our short. So how are we going to find the real cause of our VDD boost short? Well, we're going to have to inject voltage directly into VDD boost. Then we'll see what's the thinnest wire directly on VDD boost without coming in through this chip. Let's find a good spot to inject our wire by looking at ZXW. So we're going to kind of take a broad view here and say, where could our VDD boost short be? It could be up here, right? Which would be great because that's not covered up with one of these cans. It could be this capacitor here. It could be any one of these 4 caps. And it could be over here. Let's see. Oh, thank goodness. There's no VDD boost underneath this big can, so it's not going to be there. And then over here, we've got a couple of components that it could be that we can't see. All of these are buried. So now what's a good spot? I'd like to just solder a wire right here to these large 4 caps, but I'm worried that if I do that, that I'm not going to be able to see if, I think probably one of them is the cause of the short. Just because big caps tend to be failure points and little caps don't. Let's see if we can kind of go up here to the very edge of the phone, find this guy, and put a little wire right there. And that would let us see which of those big 4 caps are the cause of their short. No, it's just a guess. I have no way to know what's actually short here. All right, so we're going to solder a wire right here. And we're going to check in with chat. All right. Oof, went over my head. No, what's wrong, Doug? It's not over your head. All right. It is kind of a good lesson in not doing sort of see hot, remove hot. All right, so we found that little dude that we just saw in ZXW. We're going to expose both sides. I'm going to find a short detecting wire. Let's just hit record. All right, so we're looking at the edge of that guy that's kind of facing the neighbors. So if we look, it's right here. And I'm going to solder a wire to the edge of that guy facing the neighbors. A little bit of flux. And we're going to grab an iron. And we are injecting voltage into the shorted line. Now, most of you guys are going to think, well, why didn't you just take off the chip that was getting hot? Well, we could, but man, that would be hard. Look at that. It's right next to the CPU. It's underfilled. And we would only likely find, I mean, it could be the cause of the short, but I just don't think it is. And how do you know? You know from experience, from doing this a long time. I will tell you, though, that on a Drivesavers video, on my channel, I have a video where a phone came to us having gone to Drivesavers where they approved, at the time, $2,000 quote, and then they couldn't find this exact same problem, a VDD boost short. The lady sent it to me. It was the same problem, found the boost short, and only charged her a fraction of the cost. So good job, Brian. I'm sure that Drivesavers is able to find a VDD boost short now because it's fairly classic, but you never know. I don't know that for sure. All right, I definitely know that they were not able to find that problem back when I made that video, which you can find somewhere on my channel. All right, now let's get our thermal camera out, and things are looking up. It might change. Things might start looking down in a minute, but here we go. Thermal camera, activate. Okay, so where we're really expecting that we might have a VDD boost short is the bank of caps, which are right in this row and not the little chip that's right there. So in order to find that out, we're going to have to inject just 1 volt, maybe 2 volts. Let's see. I'm going to connect this to my DC power supply. And now I've got ground. And let's see if I can touch some ground. Look at that. Hello. Now I'm going to show you this with the freeze spray so that you guys can see under the microscope exactly what's going on. So as predicted, it is one of those 4 caps. So I'm really glad that we didn't solder the wire there, or else, you know, the wire itself is always going to get hot. Here, look, you can see, here's our wire now. The wire is going to get hot. See it right there in the, right there in the bottom of the frame. When I connect, click, 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 the wire's going to get hot. So if our wire had been over here, we would have a hard time seeing our shorted cap. Now, it is still hard to see, especially for you guys on this display. Let's look under the microscope with freeze spray just so we can be sure. All right, so we're going to undo this guy. And, all right, I need some freeze spray. Can you hook me up, Brad?
Right next to your...
That's fire extinguisher. Projector. Oh, up there. Okay. That doesn't have anything left in it. We can get some from the back if... I feel like that one of the students was using it kind of over there for... Okay. All right, here we go. Now let's take a look. All right, let's see. All right, chat, what do you think? Hi, Jessa, very grateful for your services. Christy and Sunday helped a lot. Good job, Christy and Sunday. Helped a lot. With Simran Oberoi. Do you know who that is? You're working on his iPad right now? Prove it. Bring it over here right now so that we can see his name on the back. Holy smokes. Simran Oberoi from Stitch Masters Limited. Wow, that's crazy. Is he local? Oh wait, is that the one from that's the one from Kenya. Okay. Wow. That iPad's going to get fixed up by Christy and be on its way back to Kenya. All right, that's a long time. Yeah, from Kenya. Yeah, you got it. All right. Somebody goes, you're about to get doxxed. All right, let's see. All right, Doug, hope you're hanging in. We're about to light this up. All right, so we think that what's going to get hot is in this row of 4 guys. You know, it's one of these guys, probably this guy here. All right. All right, now let's see which one of you capacitors is actually a wire to ground. Raise your hand if you are a wire. So we're looking at our chip that got hot when we injected through the battery versus these 4 guys that are also on VDD boost. So we're going to light it up with some freeze spray, and then we're going to hit it with some juice. All right. Winter. Here's some winter. All right, let me get some extra light in here. Okay, here we go. I'm going to hit the ground. Oh, it's that guy. Oh, I thought it was going to be the one on the end closest to the chip. Even better. It's this guy right here. Can you guys see that? Let's make sure that you can. All right, so all eyes on this guy. I'm actually going to make a better image by taking off the Barlow lens. All right. So just for the sake of display and video, I'm taking off my Barlow lens, which allows my camera, or allows the microscope to be in focus closer to the actual piece of work. And that will leave more light from my light ring down on the board so that you guys can see more freeze spray. All right, most right one, number 4. It looks cracked. Well, we'll see. All right, now we're going to go down and get in focus, and it should be brighter. All right. There, nice and bright for you guys. All right, now we're going to make a clip. All right, so we've focused in on the potential candidates here. Let's get that nice and in focus for you guys. And what we have is our VDD Boost chip, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 components, and we're going to ask them to raise your hand if you are secretly a wire to ground. Here comes some freeze spray. Everything's ice cold. Let's look in the microscope and touch ground. There's ground. Look at that. Super obvious. Look at that. It's this guy right here. Me, 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 me. All right, let's see that one more time, even closer in for those of you in the back. All right, here we go. Freeze. Bring it back into focus. All right. Winter. And touch ground. See that guy? Look, I'm going to leave it on there see how it's melting? Just that one guy. Yeah, that's who it is. And now, if you had to place like $100 bet and say, which one of those 4 guys looks like a little tarnished, a little discolored on the end? Yeah, it's a tough call, but maybe that guy. All right, next step, off with his head. We're gonna get this guy off of this board. And I'm gonna disconnect here, and I'm gonna use the Yield iPad Rehab short killer that's fixed more boards than any other tool. And we're gonna very gently, without damaging the CPU, the phone saver says, I'd have lost my $100. Yeah, this one doesn't look at all like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it looks pretty okay in the very, very close-up view. All right, so now we're gonna short killer and get him right off the board. All right, my short killer has seen better days since I just used it to remove the shields, but we're gonna get in here. And I'm simply gonna use mechanical disruption. All right, I wanna be very careful here at the edge of the CPU. In fact, I think I'm gonna have to swap this for a fresh short killer blade because that one, I want it to be quite sharp for this particular job. Because I gotta kill my short. All right, here we go. I'd have lost my $100. Yeah, that's a strategy that I use a lot with students is to just ask them, if come on, if you had to make a $100 bet, what would it be? Because usually you can tell a little bit, but I don't know, this one is pretty tight. Let's see what's on the other side. Man, this is some heavy-duty underfill. Might have to come in here with a little bit of hairdryer heat. All right, let's see who the neighbor is in there. Yeah, I don't want to bother those guys. This is quite tiny. This is very, very tiny. If you are at home thinking this is easy, this is my finger. This is very, very tiny. To carefully just wiggle this guy out. It's kind of like being a dentist. I went to the dentist actually yesterday. And I remember the whole time sitting there like feeling him like doing all sorts of manipulating surgeries in my head. And I remember just kind of imagining exactly this. Like I was imagining trying to remove a shorted cap. Well, I got a piece of him off, but that doesn't help me. There we go. I just didn't want to press on the edge of the CPU. All right, so that guy flew off, and he is now gone. So now we're going to get our multimeter back in here and ask, do we still have a short on our main power rail? So let's find out. Red probe on ground and 0.382. Main power rail, or a VDD boost rail, is back up to normal. And my guess is that is likely the only thing wrong here with Brian's phone. So let's go ahead and find out. I'm going to put a screen on it, and I'm going to see if it can boot up. All right, that was a tough one to extract like that. Miguel, for working for fries and a burger, would have snapped the board in half by now. Nonsense. All right, so let's go back to our hand cam. All right, wouldn't it be easier to touch with the iron while pushed? Well, I just froze it down, and no, usually it was very, very hot. Now it's very, very cold. That's going to make it be pretty weak, and so I think my preference, there's no rules, is to get it off this way. I find it to actually be surprisingly safe. Okay, so now we are gonna find out what is that looking at. Let's get a hand cam back in here. Let's zoom it in a little bit. Let's focus it. And let's get rid of that wire. All right, time for the moment of truth. I'm pretty confident about this, so I'm going to go ahead and slip Brian's board back in his housing. Now we won't be able to reinstall this CPU covering, and we're not going to even think about attempting to replace that capacitor because that would be so risky and so damaging, so aggressive to the board. And some of you guys might be thinking, well, how can you just leave it off? Isn't it there for a reason? And it is. And the purpose of those capacitors are to act like little trash cans to clean and filter the VDD boost power voltage. But we're not even going to be using VDD boost to extract data. VDD boost is a rail that's only powered on when the device is in a battery low state. Otherwise, it just passes the main power rail right through it. So the worst case scenario is that the handful of chips that are on the VDD boost power rail would be kind of getting like a little bit of a flickering of their power voltage, and that is not likely, that's certainly not going to matter at all for data recovery here to get Brian's data off of this. In fact, I don't think that Brian would even notice long-term use of the phone, the absence of that single sort of stabilizing bypass capacitor. All right, but to put it back, there's underfill in there, that tight clearance, that would be extremely risky. So we are always going to play it safe for data recovery. So I'm just going to connect back in a few of these connections. Including the charge port. All right, and let's put the screen on. And if it boots up, we'll recover all of that data for you, Brian. And you will have made the right decision not to take up Drivesavers on their $4,410 quote. We'll even plug in your Face ID. All right, so here we have everything plugged in. I am going to go ahead and connect the battery. And if it boots up and needs to charge, then we'll connect it to DC power. But this is going to be a good shot for us. All right, moment of truth. Will it catch on fire? Will it burn up? Will Brian forever think, man, I just should have let Drivesavers do it? All right, let's see what's going to happen. So far, nothing. Apple logo! Of course it has an Apple logo. All right, this is going to boot up. And Brian, I don't think you're going to have anything wrong with your phone, but let's find out. If this works on the first try, I will supersize my order of fries today. Well, I want to see a picture of that. I want to see you reach out on our Facebook, a picture of you with the supersized fries. Although I really can't condone supersized fries. I think you should make some homemade fries. There we go. I felt it boot up. All right, let's see. All right, we got to deal with his screen. He's got a low battery icon. Can you guys see that? All right, nice job, neat diagnostics. I got schooled there. Well, that is awesome, but I still want to see it boot up. See, he's got just the too hard to see low battery icon. I'm actually going to turn this light off. And we're going to chill, and I'm going to record this clip again because it's 2:52, and I got 8 minutes before I have to be down the street at school. So I do want to turn this into a video. So I want to let this charge for a second. It is consuming normal charging current, and then it's going to boot up and kind of come to that full display that we want to see. All right, don't you hate it when it seems to take longer to boot? Techs can really notice that extra bit of time. Oh, for sure. I make my homemade fries supersized too. I even leave the jacket on, just cook them taters whole. All right. Well, You know, I think that anything is healthier than McDonald's fries. Like it really, really is. Last night I made a buffalo chicken pasta dish, one pot buffalo chicken pasta dish, really good. I made some Caribbean jerk fish, some Jamaican slaw with pineapple in it. So good. Just go look around for some awesome recipes and you can make such amazing quality whole ingredient food. Love it. Whenever any one of you come to Kenya, please let me know. I'll be happy to take you around. Well, I would love to go to Kenya. I can't wait to go on any trips. Somebody sent us an email yesterday saying, will you come to Japan on a Air Force base fixing Roombas? Love to do that. Simran says, you have my number. All right, here we go. It looks like it's going to boot up. So let's make it quick. All right, I see an Apple logo, and I think it's going to be good news for Brian. I don't think this phone is going to have any trouble recovering the data, and it's just absolutely wild to me. Look, there you go. There's your little doggy. Wild to me how close Brian came to saying yes to a 4410? 4,410 for what is not easy, but straightforward, right? This is a job that many people that do microsoldering have seen many times. This is a very classic short circuit. Everybody loves short circuits. $4,400 is well outside the normal range that most quality microsolderers would charge for this job. All right, let me check on, let's make sure that we've got the right data. Let's see. Yep, there we go. All right, Brian, it's good news for you. You were able to get your data, and for the extra $4,000 that you saved, you can go on an amazing vacation and tell us all about it. Order yourself supersized fries, have an awesome time spending the money that you didn't have to give to Drivesavers to get your data back. And for the rest of you guys, I hope that you consider alternatives to Drivesavers. It is true that your first shot at data recovery is your best shot, but look around, look at local reviews. There's going to be somebody a lot closer to you, maybe somebody local. There are a lot of great people that are out there that have as much experience as I do. We've trained over 500 students to do this exact type of work. So spend some time looking for alternatives to Drivesavers because they are definitely out there. All right, and that is it for the video. And that is it for our stream. Yeah, plus a working phone. Yeah, minus the CPU shield. Very good. Okay, let's see, very fair price, great work. It was not easy to find. I would have taken the PMIC or went all on an endless search. Well, that's why we do these videos, you know. If you would have looked at this and said, I would have taken off the PMU, you would have really destroyed the chance for Brian's data. If you looked at this and you said, I would have taken off the boost chip, you would have endangered Brian's data and not found the short. So if you are in that category, come on out and spend a week with us for training, and we will beat those habits out of you because there is no reason not to be able to solve this very straightforward job. All right, stream, nice chatting with you, and I am going to be on time to pick up those girls in 3 minutes from now. I'll see you next week.